Welcome back to Higher Self Wellness with Alec Hurley. Thanks for tuning in. And if you are a new listener, then a big virtual hug and a warm welcome. I want to say thank you to those who have taken the time to share this podcast, to leave a review. I just have so much gratitude for that because it lets me know that, well, you're finding some value in this. So you may notice new music, and this is music from DTO, who I have here today on the podcast. The song that you're listening to right now is called Sacred Connection from the album Infinite Energy. And I recently met DTO, also known as Dave Kemp, or Professor Dave Kemp. I recently met him, and it was at a festival here in La Jolla, California. And he was playing live music to the yoga class that I was teaching, and it was a really unique gathering, to say the least. But also just that experience of the live music element in the yoga practice was really cool. And we had just met minutes before the yoga session and music session, and there was just a really interesting synergy that happened, well, between just the both of us getting out of the way and showing up in our best self and with the best intentions and allowing it to come through. And so I reached out to him and wanted to have a conversation with him / interview and just to get to know him a little bit better. And I really think you're going to enjoy this. Before we get into that, I want to offer a free service, and that is to connect with me one-on-one for a personal wellness strategy session. And that is where we will dive deep into exploring, like, what's your biggest issue around your health and wellness. That could be for just your body, for how to eat and nourish yourself, or through meditation and how to nourish your mind. But you can sign up for that with the link in these notes or also over on the website. And again, it's 100% free, 40 minutes, you and me, and we can go deep into exploring what your biggest challenge is right now. So I invite you to stay to the end of the show because you're going to hear a full-length song from DTO, and this is off of his album titled Nameless Energy, and the song at the end is called Cosmic Grounding. And so I know you're going to enjoy this. And again, if you do find value, if you find this podcast helpful in any way, insightful, inspiring, uplifting, then share it with a friend, family member, anybody else who you may feel will find value in this as well. To find out more about Dave Kemp and DTO, you can check out his website, dtomusic.com. You can also find his music on Spotify, iTunes. You can download his music on Bandcamp, and you can find him on social media as well, DTO. So enjoy the show. And we're off. So, DTO, Dave Kemp, thank you for being here today and for just exploring and kind of diving into a little conversation that I just felt really drawn to do because I just met you a couple weeks back at the Trinity Festival in La Jolla, and you were playing music as I was guiding yoga asana, and it was just a very beautiful experience. And I felt some like synergistic energies behind that when we were in that space. And based on that, that's when I had the inspiration, like, I should really reach out to him and talk to him a little bit more just to get to know him a little bit more and hear a little bit more about him because there's a lot of people out here kind of in our field of being a change maker and an influencer and kind of a creative artist and as well as teachers. And I feel like the more we can connect with each other and collaborate with each other and just begin to get to know each other, we can support each other in these deeper ways. And so I didn't know that you were a school teacher until I connected with you, and I saw a video on Facebook that you were walking around the campus, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. So kind of what brought you into being a teacher? What inspired you to take that action?
Well, first of all, Alec, thank you for having me on your podcast. Very grateful to have met you as well. And, inspiration, that's a great question for all of us as we are being who we are in the world and consistently becoming our higher selves. I was drawn to teach based on the legacy in my family. My father was a school teacher for 35 years, and my mother teaches music. My father taught government, and my sister-in-law is a music teacher in Nashville. And there's this consistent filling up of who we are and the lighting of the fire within us when there's someone in our lives in the past, whether it be a kindergarten teacher, high school teacher, someone in college, a yoga instructor, a mentor, the sensei, as Karate Kid and Daniel-san taught us, one of my most favorite movies, where we a lot of times are in this fog in life. We don't know what we don't know because we don't know it. And along comes an experience, an opportunity, and similar to how you were mentioning in your introduction, the synergy that we co-created by having music plus live, the live component of people being there and the music and the guiding, like the whole outdoor synergy of that whole recipe of life. Like, so what is the recipe to remove the fog from human consciousness and from a teenage mind? Because that's my expertise, is to teach high schoolers. How can I, as one of many drops in the oceans of the abundance of how I can relay information, how can that break through to a child where that kid says, aha, I got it. Wow. Okay. And then how can that be an inspirational moment in time where then they can set forth their sail and say, this is the direction I want to go in. So I'm a world language teacher. I teach Spanish. It's the third most spoken language in the world. And a lot of students understand the importance. For me, is how can you personalize the learning experience where that student says, yes, now I can speak with my grandmother fully in Spanish because I haven't been able to communicate before. Or how is it that now I feel like, even though I was born in this one single country, and that's the one thing about this human experience, we're all born in this single place, and then we have the opportunities and the possibilities to travel. And I've studied, lived, and traveled in 12 countries, where traveling really helps the individual have a collective energy of what's going on with all 7 billion human beings. And that's what motivated me, is to be that conduit, to be that individual that can create that rapport and that relationship with a student, where then they can know that it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's cool to learn. And that's one of the things about the teenage attitude. And we all know, we've all been teenagers before, that is important to inspire and to carry that light of learning. And it's been happening through human history for centuries. And I feel that it's just within my soul to share that knowledge and inspiration for others.
That's really cool. And so I didn't know you lived in 12 different countries as well, and working abroad and all of that. So wow, that's awesome. Like, just the depth of experience gained through traveling. And like, we're on a pretty small planet relative to the cosmos. And there's so much of it, and like so much richness just around the planet. And when we really take the time to explore, we get to learn in so many different ways, even beyond just the intellectual and reading of the information and taking tests and all that stuff. But like, through experience. And I really feel like through experience, especially that of traveling, that of interacting with people, that of just overall engagement with life, is a really profound classroom to learn many different lessons. And totally cool. So actually, a question on the traveling, and it kind of ties into teaching as well, is like just staying grounded and like do you have any practices yourself that you used during your travel times of like going around to those 12 different countries, of like just personal care practices, just so you can stay in that state of inspiration and connected to yourself?
I love it. Yes, that is the balance of life. Whoever is listening right now, and whichever job or passion that you are on a daily cycle being involved with, how is it that we can also feed ourselves and to allow for us to, every moment when you walk in that door, when you, for me as a school teacher, walk into that classroom, how am I as prepared in all different aspects of how we can find that equilibrium as a human being? Like, I want my nervous system to be at a level where I have, the disposition for any child that has whatever emotional issues happening in their household, however they're behaving in the classroom. How can I show up? How can I be present? And how can I listen? I really feel that, as you know, as a yoga instructor yourself, when you listen and not only from the audio, but intuitively feel what it is that the class requires. And there's so many parallels to being a yoga instructor as well as being a school teacher, because teaching is teaching is teaching. And, one of the quotes I love for traveling is, be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. And when we can have that life where we're limitless, we can truly say, this is possible and anything's possible. If I want to keep that enthusiasm, because that's what sets the soul on fire, is enthusiasm. If we could bottle enthusiasm, we could sell it for however much. And for me, if I'm grounded, if I've done my own personal yoga practice, my asana, when I'm creating musically, when I am connecting with these amazing fellow souls on this planet that are either here with the similar common passions of yoga or music, community, when I can fill my cup, when I can have an amazing experience off campus in my life, and when I'm up to something, I feel fulfilled, then that's how I find that balance. Because when I'm on campus, shirt and tie, ready to not be the sage on the stage, I'm more of the guide on the side. That's my philosophy of life, and how I can guide these children, this fresh generation, which most of them have been born in 2003 or 2004. So these are all 21st century children, 100%. Their reality is their newsfeed, it's scrolling, it's Snapchat, it's Instagram, everything's very fast paced, and you have to stay on your toes. So, the second part of my response to your question is, I need to stay as hip and cool and up to speed on what's happening on this planet. This pale blue dot out in the cosmos, as Carl Sagan called it. How can this machinery, this technology, this expansion of human consciousness, how can all of this culminate into the reality of what the average teenager is experiencing right here and now? When I do that musically, when I do that, when I go to transformational festivals and I play my music at Bhakti Fest, Shakti Fest, Lightning in a Bottle, Sedona Yoga Festival, Hanuman Festival, all of these amazing places. Myself, I've been to 4 Burning Mans, and that's one of those places where you can come together as a human tribe, and it's a global connective experience where how can we recreate this? And for me, there's no boundaries when it comes to how you can create connections in your personal life or your family life or your soul family, as well as in your job. Some people call it your jobby job, right? Where you think, oh, I just have to do this. And at the same time, when you can really pour in that passion and allow for there to be the groundedness in your overall, you need to sleep, you need to eat healthy. I've been 100% plant powered for 13 years. And so when I have proper health and nutrition that works best for me, then I have tons of energy. And so if I have that energy, that can match or even go beyond what 30 teenagers in one room exert, then I'm on fire. I'm moving around. I'm really engaging the learning. I'm doing fun activities, and it gets students to be interactive, for them to be able to have conversational Spanish, and also to play music as well. That's one thing I want to kind of create a connection to, is where if I'm out there being musically creative, then when I'm in the classroom, I can then play a song from my last album that's in Spanish. It's called Electricidad, and it's the solar plexus chakra that went with my most recent project. And so now students saw the music video. It's in Spanish. It's, when I've been on the news, students have watched me on the news. I'll show them in class. So it's this, hey, I'm not this teacher that simply lives in the classroom 24/7. I have this extension of passions in the world, and I'm living that dream. I'm traveling, I'm doing what I love. And that, therefore, as I like to say, you can teach children 3 ways: example, example, example. Those are the 3 ways. Because if you're being that example in the world, if you are consistently nurturing and cultivating the highest potential within yourself, and students witness that, they see that. And so it's great. And I've even had students, when they'll Google, my artist name, DTO, you're like, wait, what? Like, tell me more. What's going on? Are you famous? And I was like, well, I'm fairly well known in the yoga world and music. And that's, where my passions are. So it's really great, because some students will come up to me and say, hey, I want to make beats. Show me how to do it, So it's great. So to summarize, the main question is, I really am in action in both aspects of my life.
That's so cool. Oh man, so much there, so much power, and just being that anchor, especially for kids in their teens and who are going through so much change in their lives, that they can have a real solid anchor, somebody who's doing the work themselves, somebody who's leading by example, and showing them how you can really align yourself with your highest potential and do all these things and stay grounded and still show up for others. Wow, such a powerful thing. And oh man, I feel like a lot of that as well, just your own personal practices of how you nourish yourself on many different levels, and you stay fit mentally, fit physically, so you can become more adaptable again, so you can hold the space and show up and be there for the students as they come into the classroom, because everybody is living their own life. Everybody comes from a different place every day, from their own personalized situation and their own life circumstances, to where you need to be able to hold that space so people can kind of let go of it and process it in a different way while they continue to learn and evolve and grow, and also build the group container of the classroom setting. Because without a solid leader in the classroom setting, the group has no direction. It can go kind of all over the place. And so that's why, when I saw that you're a teacher, I was like, this guy is, he's doing something right, because he's not only teaching people, but he's also expressing himself in the medium of music and sound. And wow, there's so much beauty going on. There's so much synergy. And so I want to touch a little bit on music now too, actually, because I grew up in a very musical family, and my parents raised 3 kids playing music. And I learned how to play many different instruments growing up, and I do a little bit now still, just for my own personal creativity and outlet kind of deal. But beyond that, it's such a good tool. It's such a great and powerful medium to influence change, and change within the mind, change within the body. You hear a beat and you just want to start moving in a specific way. And the same thing for how it can influence our mind and influence our consciousness to that of expansion and alignment with our highest potential, with our highest self. And that's something I definitely felt when listening to your music as well, is that there's something definitely coming through you, and you're almost as this conduit of expression of this music to help the people who you are interacting with, and that be like your students in the classroom or just other people who find your music online. And so, I don't know, do you see music as that as well, as this like influence of change?
Absolutely. And exactly what you were saying. Bono said it best when he said, music can change the world because it can change people.
Mm.
When the beat starts, when there's a serene, mellow, chill piano sound, it puts you in a blissful state. When you listen to a particular song that takes you back to when you're in fifth grade and at the school dance and you had a crush on someone, right? It can also remind you of a sad time in your life when you happen to listen to this particular song when you were going through something, and it can emotionally take you back, and it can prompt so many emotions. And that's why movies are so powerful, because with the soundtrack, a musical score that goes along with the storyline and the visuals, it can transport you to a different place entirely. And, you know, attempt to watch Indiana Jones without the music on, you know, it doesn't do the same thing, you know. And so that's the power of music. And, you know, you see these collaborations with, you know, Hollywood and the movie industry, where like Steven Spielberg and John Williams connect. They do these powerful, extraordinary experiences. And it's really about the music taking you to a place. And it could even take you somewhere where, you know, there's this divine connection to who we are as beings, as these frequencies of energy, as these human organisms that have the capacity to tap into the soul and the divinity that's coming through us, and to create, as in yoga, we know we have our 7 chakras, and where we have our roots grounded to the core of the earth, all the way to the cosmos from our crown chakra and higher. And this is where I love when you said conduit, because I was mentioning that as a school teacher earlier, how I feel I'm this conduit for knowledge to create the aha moment, to lift the fog from that cloudiness that we proverbially have all the time in life, where we don't know what we don't know. And what music does for me is, it's interesting, because as a language teacher, I use, like just today in class, we listened to a song in Spanish, and they had on a piece of paper written down 70% of the lyrics. They had to fill in the blanks for the other 30%. So they were listening to this fun, cool pop song in Spanish. They were filling it in, but they were doing it musically. And from a teaching perspective, left brain, right brain, we have such a synergy that happens with our synaptic connectors when you have the capacity to say, here's this data, and I want to have this data entered into my system because I need to know this. Just like kids learn the alphabet. Now, if we learn the alphabet like a drill sergeant, we wouldn't learn the alphabet as quickly if it was A, B, C, monotone. But guess how you and I, Alec, learn the alphabet? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. It's all with frequencies and music. And when you do that, now that data with the creativeness of music and that expression, that connects in a powerful way. That's why so many people can sing song lyrics all day long, because it came with the music. And that's where it's a powerful explosion of possibilities when I combine my musicianship and my creativity into the classroom and teaching. Now, beyond that, when I'm creating music because I'm creating music because I'm creating music, right? When I'm in that place of being a channel for that, then it's really allowing for whatever it is that wants to express itself, herself, hisself, through that way of knowing that here I am, someone that was classically trained on piano when I was 5 years old. I started playing drums when I was 10, guitar 15. Then I got into electronic music production later on in life, but I also played in concert band, jazz bands, marching bands. And I traveled to Japan when I was in high school playing in a marching band. And so there's all these ways that I was able to mix cultures with music, with learning, with community, with celebrating humanity in general, of wow, let's come together, let's celebrate, let's be who we are in this lifetime. And to smile is, of course, the international language. And music puts a smile on your face so many ways. Even moments before we started our podcast, a friend of mine sent me a song and just started listening to it. I was like, wow, just the chord progressions, the movement, that's the technical part of my brain thinking the chord progressions, but nevertheless, the feeling that I received. And, music produces a kind of pleasure which human nature cannot do without. There's even birds that when you're on a hammock, when you're in nature, there's music and there's sounds all around us. And as you've listened to my music, Alec, you experienced it live when we collaborated, I bring in sounds of nature. I walk around with a rain stick during class. I play live guitar. I play live piano. And I do that in an intuitive manner where I do it based on whatever you're guiding the class in whatever particular asana. And it requires for me to really listen and to be attentive to what is required. Great example is, let's say you wanted to guide students into a 5-minute meditation. I wouldn't start playing, the blues or rock and roll or anything. I would start to play like higher notes, frequencies that would induce like birds to chirp and for people to feel really blissed out, because it would be in the upper chakras, as well as if you were to say, let's really ground down, if that was the theme of the yoga class, then I would play lower mid-range notes on the piano, and those frequencies invoke a particular feeling that nothing else, in my point of view, can do.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So there's this idea, and I'm not sure if I can actually think that this probably resonates with you to some degree, but it's this idea that creativity is a living energy on some other plane that chooses us as, again, this conduit to be expressed. And that could be through like writing, through singing, through music, through art. Does that resonate with you?
100%. Yeah. When I was starting to produce my first album, Nameless Energy, and the title itself is exactly that. It's, words can't express what music can fill in the blanks of whatever emotional thoughts, feelings, all of that collectively. And when there's the unknown, where there's, as I say, nameless energy, I had a huge moment of awakening when I was in the studio. I call it the laboratory of sound waves. And I was in there for hours and hours, and I combined all the musicianship I had with all these extraordinary feelings I was receiving in my yoga practice and from extraordinary community members I was connecting with. And, you get really into this place of expansion and hope and optimism in the world. Then you recognize there's something beyond the beyond. That's, of course, we're here on this planet and we're here in this physical form, and we have amazing ways that we can feel a human experience. When I've created music in that state of being without the mind, where I don't get into the technicalities, because technically when you listen to any song on the radio or on Spotify, however you listen to music, it's all done with zeros and ones and some computer technology. That's how people are creating music these days. The days of Abbey Road and pushing play on a tape are done, So people are doing this in a digital technical realm. So you have to have the skill sets. And my analogy is, it's similar to driving a car. When we were taking driver's ed classes, we need to know, okay, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, here's the location of the accelerator, here's the brake, here's the gears. Okay, what's my odometer reading? And you need these technicalities, how much of an angle I need to turn the wheel. But once you get into knowing how to drive a car, I'm sure you've heard the term hypnotic driving, right? Where you go from point A to point B, and when you get there, you're like, whoa, how did I get here? Because you were in this flow state of driving. And all of a sudden you arrived, because you knew the essentials, you knew the fundamentals. And that's where my music really started to take off in that divine realm, I feel, is where it wasn't about the music theory. It wasn't about the nuances of, was this a C sharp or was this a minor or a major note? It was, I put all these ingredients to the recipe, and all of a sudden what resulted in was me listening back and saying, wow, how did this happen? And it felt like that driving experience that I trust everyone that's listening has had before, where they're like, whoa, I've arrived. How did I get here? And it's almost too much sometimes to attempt to reverse engineer, right? Because then you're starting to become that analytical brain, and you almost remove the layers of like, like, wow. And so that's where I was in the studio and I started to have those moments. And of course, like every artist and creator in the world, we're all creators, obviously, right? We're here to create. When you're in that place of creation, you want to figure out, okay, is there a template to do this? Is there a system? Do I have this routine? And sometimes you just have to chalk it up as a blessing. Say, wow, this happened. And then life is a momentum in so many ways. And I rolled up my sleeves. I worked on my next song and my next song and the next song. And then all of a sudden I put all these puzzle pieces together and I launched the world's first yoga soundtrack. That's a 60-minute experience that goes along with a standard yoga flow. And that was my big breakthrough moment in 2016. And when Deepak Chopra tweeted my music to the world, it's like, wow, okay, that's amazing. And so it's been really grateful to have all the guidance in my life and all the music teachers and all the people that I've been able to be influenced by. And especially, I really want to thank my yoga practice and my dear friend Tara Devi. She is an Ashtangini, and she taught me the practice of yoga, and it really opened up so many pathways for me. And little did I know, I mean, now that I'm reverse engineering it for the sake of our interview, at that moment, I was like, I got it. Okay, I had the musicianship as a child that then connected the dots with yoga that equals a trilogy of albums about energy. So my first album was Nameless Energy, my second Infinite Energy, and this next week I'm starting production on my third album called Radiant Energy. And that's really what it comes down to, is us collectively as human beings discussing what is energy, who are we, and what are we here to do, and what's our purpose and what's our path.
So there's a sense of like just getting out of the way to allow it to happen, and following the inner guidance of like not needing to know how the pieces are going to fit together, but just trusting and staying connected and embodied through different practices, through different means, through nourishment, through movement, through breath. Doing that frequently really just opens us up to stay in alignment with our highest potential, with our highest self, and to offer what it is that our own, personalized, unique gift is to offer humanity to this planet, to help uplift and to help create connectivity and support each other through deep listening and through leading by example and by just showing up and like offering a genuine connection rather than just a like a surface level like interaction. And so that's what I really like. I could feel that behind your music and just behind meeting you, that there's a lot more to letting this music come through than just somebody jumping behind the keys and playing away, which is great and all, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, but there's a different feeling behind it. And kind of like how there's a different feeling behind words, to where there's this, like how you say, the nameless energy behind it that affects us subtly. And you can feel that with music as well. You can listen to somebody play a guitar and essentially they can play this, two people can play the same song. But you can definitely feel the difference to when like the energy being put into it and how they're playing it, or whether it's singing, how they're singing it, rather than just attempting to sing it for a performance, but there's a different energy behind it. And I really believe that that affects how people receive the music as well, how they receive the sound and even receive the nourishment of food, is how it's all prepared and how it's all expressed through our own like personal alignment with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes down to intention, I feel. And as I mentioned earlier, the equation of musicianship plus transformative yoga experiences equals nameless energy, equals infinite energy, equals radiant energy, equals my expression of who I am as DTO, the artist. And that came through when I changed the trajectory of my sales and if you've heard the expression, if you just change your direction just 1 degree in life, where you're going to end up towards your last breath is going to be completely different. And when you shift and have that moment of, okay, this is it. I feel an alignment. I feel purpose. I feel connection. I feel an energy that's nameless. And let's go with that. And it's you almost having that self conversation and that soul awakening within you, where what you say and how you act is your truth. And I think, Gandhi mentioned that, and that's your alignment. And authenticity is a word that, and a feeling that I love to bring into the classroom, as well as in my studio when I'm creating music and when I'm performing as well, where if you're inauthentic, teenagers can smell that right away. If I'm being my self-expressed, beautiful self and on a roll and on a flow, being fun and humorous and being who I am and who students know me to be. And I high five students every time they walk in the classroom. I bring that enjoyment of, letting them know like, hey, we're all in this together. This is a safe space. And I know earlier, Alec, you mentioned the word a container. And that's what I love to do, is create a container where here we are, we're in this together. Let's make it happen. And that's really my intention when I'm creating music, is to allow for there to be whatever that is within me and whatever information can come through. And as I mentioned with the analogy of driving a car, where how that flow can come through musically without caring or knowing. And, we hear this a lot in the yoga community, which is trust the process. And I think it applies to whatever you're doing creatively and musically. And it's not all about music. If you're a visual artist out there, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're an uncle, if you're an auntie, whatever it is, like how you're being with your kids and how you're being with others and how you're being in so many aspects of our lives. And one thing I do want to mention is what I like to do is have 3 different things I do daily, going back to routine and how I create that connection. I'm either going to take a swim. I'm either going to go on a trail run, go on a hike in nature, or I'm going to be on my mat and practice yoga. And so I have those 3 things all the time. And I can switch them out. If one day I'm like, hey, I feel like swimming today. I don't feel like being in nature right now. Or, oops, the sunset. I'm already, kind of locked in. I don't want to do a nature run out in the dark. So I'm going to jump in the pool, or I'm going to go to yoga class. So I think all of us, if we, the variety is the spice of life. And same thing as a musician. If I already created a particular type of song, then I do like to go to a different style. Like, for example, my first album, I have a piano composition titled Flight. And then I have a full-on musical layering of sounds, which is the title track, Nameless Energy, which has extraordinary vocalist Krista Richards. And I also love the collaboration that happens. That's one of the school bells. It's not for me, though. It's just a signal for lunch. Life as a school teacher, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And also, I know we've talked a lot about the individual journey and the individual path. And what I really want to give acknowledgements to are the human beings and these beautiful souls that have come into my life that I collaborate with. Every album I've completed and launched to the world is a series of others being there to support me, whether it be in the studio as a musician, a vocalist, or mastering engineers, or people that are helping distribute my music, or people that are adding my music to a film or a documentary, or even on an Instagram video where they're using my music to be that layer. I actually helped shoot a video yesterday, and I'm working on a music video. And when you have that layer of music, it really mixes beautifully to, as I was saying earlier, the analogy of a recipe, or then which ingredients equal this in recipe. And that's why I said earlier, hey, if I'm out in nature, swimming, doing yoga, then that's personally my recipe for feeling alive. And that's what it comes down to. A lot of us feel groggy sometimes. We feel lost. We have whatever emotional state that we're in. And a quick reminder for all the listeners out there, I'd love to say this to my students, is emotions are temporary. And I'll repeat that, emotions are temporary. So if you're feeling depressed, recently we had a whole week of Yellow Ribbon Day, which is for Suicide Prevention Week. And it's really important that we address this to everyone. Like, hey, emotions are temporary. And if you need to talk it through to someone, speak with someone. Also, happiness is temporary. So even if you're elated, if you're super stoked, if let's say I have a trifecta, we're in a single day, I do yoga, I do a trail run, I go swimming, I'm blissed out, right? I'm in the ocean. Nevertheless, know that another day will come. You know, recently my father passed away, and that was a very traumatic, emotional place for me to be in. And because of these other ways I've balanced out my life, whatever life experiences occur, then I know that, you know, life is happening because life is happening. It's not necessarily happening to me. I'm not a victim. And this is where I feel that music, as well as yoga, can simply shift your perspectives of life. It's not always about, you know, totally doing something absolutely different in the world. It's how can you have a fresh viewpoint of what's happening and how you're perceiving that particular occurrence. And if you feel like someone did this to me, or, you know, the world's out to get me, if you have that story. I was reading something recently where, you know, a high percentage of who we are becoming in this world has to do with our inner chatter and our thoughts. And if you wake up every day, say, I'm a champion, I'm a hero, I'm going to rock this day, I'm stoked to be here, I get another day on planet Earth, right? Not like, woe is me, it's another Monday, oh my gosh. And so when we surround ourselves, and I know this is a conversation a lot of people have had, is where, you know, the top 5 people you're with really matters. And on campus, I hang out with teachers that are uplifting. I really collaborate only with people that have that intention. As you were mentioning earlier, 2 people could play the same exact song on a guitar. I want to work with someone that has a deeper message and intention. That's my first question I ask the people when they want to collaborate with me. I ask them, what's your message? Sometimes it stumps them and they have to think like, wait, what is my message? I've never thought of life like that, because your life is your message. And when people are like, wow, it's about raising the vibrations, it's about expanding consciousness, you know, then, all right, we're talking the same language, we're feeling the same feels here. So.
Oh, it's beautiful. So beautiful. Helping people burn through the mental fog 1% at a time.
Poco a poco, como se dice en español, ¿no?
Oh, yeah.
Eso.
A little bit. Baby steps. It's the same approach that I take when helping people evolve their habits. It's through the practice of Kaizen, through the smallest action step you can take in the right direction of how you want to experience life. And that's beautiful. Well, any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to leave our listeners with? A message?
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast. And I'm grateful that our dear friend Ronnie had this amazing family-centered yoga festival filled with healing, beautiful music, plant-based foods, and in a coastal, amazing city in La Jolla, where you currently reside. And there's such a amazing way that community is the answer to whatever it is we're going through in life. And for you to be a powerful yoga instructor in our community. And what's wonderful now more than ever about technology is we're here local in San Diego County, and we're able to reach on a global scale whomever it is that is receiving this message, and for them to contemplate what their message is in life and how they can be creative, how whatever it is they're feeling passionate about, how they can roll up their sleeves and make it happen. And I love what you said about, taking those little tiny steps in life where a lot of times we feel overwhelmed and can't do it, or maybe you're surrounded by people that are not lifting you up. And it's important that sometimes in life we need to drop people off at the bus stop of life and say, hey, we're not in alignment, and this is what I need to do. I need to get this handled, and let's touch base later on. And right now in this chapter, right here, right now, here's my passion. Here's this mysterious sensation within me that I sense I need to jump into action for. And if I don't, then I'm going to abandon who I am as a human being. And no one wants to feel that. Everyone wants to feel awakened, fulfilled, purposeful, connected, expressive, and truly alive. And when we have these points of balance, I feel that it becomes a miracle, truly, where, as you mentioned, you gave us that beautiful perspective. Here we are floating in the cosmos, one of billions of solar systems. And here we have the blessing of being these human organisms, alive, receptive, giving, and able to feel a sense of awe and awakening. And I feel that when we get out of our bodies into this other realm where we're truly focused on our heart space and what we have to share to the world, then that creates a life worth living. And I'm grateful that I have this multi-passionate journey I'm on as an artist, creating music in the world, as a public school teacher, and as well as being a community member to be connected and to collaborate with amazing yoga instructors yourself, and to have this interview. I feel honored, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure. So you heard it, folks. Be the change you want to see in the world. Cultivate deep listening skills. Lead by example. And smile. Smile at others. The smile goes a long way. So the more we can smile at each other, the better off we'll all be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoy this. Until next time, take care, and much love to you.
May all beings everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of your own life contribute in some way to that happiness. Freedom for all.
Ready to wake up. Billions of years ago, you were a big bang. And now you're a human being. Way out in space, and way out in time. You think that you are only inside your skin. Ready to wake up. Waking up.